Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. This is a 25-year look across the spectrum. I am Kelly Birmingham, and this podcast started with me talking about my now 28 years working in the field with children and adults with autism and developmental disabilities. And with me, as always, my partner in crime, Jen Lucero, mother to Dylan and Ethan. Hey, Jen.
Hey, Kelly.
For first-time listeners, Jen has a son, Dylan. Actually, why don't you tell our listeners about yourself?
Sure. I have a 24-year-old son, Dylan, who is would be considered moderate to severe on the spectrum. I also have a 22-year-old son, Ethan, that just graduated from college, and I work for Special Olympics Southern California. I'm the director. Do mainly all their fundraising and special events, and I also worked for Autism Speaks, and have known and worked with Kelly in one aspect or another for over 20 years.
Yep. So our podcast, we take topics related to autism and other things in the industry. This is not a fancy podcast where we talk about terminology or journal reviews. We're talking about the real stuff. So before we get started, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, SitePro. SitePro offers a wide range of engaging and professional continuing education courses developed by BCBAs for BCBAs. You can find them at their website at sitepro.com, including a whole CEU library of our podcast, me and Jen, that you can listen to and get free CEUs. So that's very cool. So today we are talking burnout, but we're not talking about BCBA burnout, which is a hot topic. People all over are talking about BCBA burnout. We are talking about RBT, behavior therapist burnout. And before I introduced our two guests, Jen and I, our last podcast we did, talked about parent-led ABA, where the new phase right now is parents are their own behavior interventionists. Some companies are even paying the parents to do it. And they are doing that because there's a shortage of RBTs and behavior therapists. There's a nationwide shortage, right? So why is there a shortage? Well, Jen and I will always go on and say, like, because we don't pay them enough.
Yeah,
because it's really
exactly.
friggin' hard work, and they don't get enough money. And they don't get enough money because insurances and state rates don't pay enough. So if you go on Reddit, you can see Reddit ABA, you can see post after post after post, people saying this is hard, I am burnt out, I can't do this anymore, this is so hard and I can barely make a living, this is super friggin' hard, right? So here's our conundrum. We have not enough RBTs or behavior therapists because one, we don't pay them enough and they're all friggin' burnt out. And then instead of like solving that, we're now paying parents to be their child's behavior interventionists and potentially ruining the quality of life for that family household. Right, Jen?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, that blows me away. That's even a thing.
So we have two people with us today that I personally have worked with that are two of the most phenomenal RBT behavior therapists, which is why I have them on this podcast. Salvador, who's been here before in our other podcast talking about behavioral perspective. Hi, Sal.
Hi, Kelly. Hi,
Hey.
Jen. Hi, Steph.
Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about how long you've been in the field? Like in 2 minutes, tell about your amazing self.
I could shorten it in 30 seconds. I have been in the field for about 7 years now, maybe close to 8. My first case ever actually was a severe participant, and they were amazing. I absolutely loved them. They said, "Hey, we think you'd be great on this case." And I stayed with them for a good amount of time while doing other cases. So I've worked with everyone from teaching someone how to touch their nose, that's starting off in motor skills or whatever, to like somebody that self-injurious behavior over 200, 300 times a day, actually 400 at some point.
Yeah.
So I've been all over the spectrum of the spectrum, in other words. And I just love all of them, like every last person that I worked with and with.
We'll talk
That's
about
about
that.
what I do.
7 years is,
Awesome.
I tried to Google actually the how long people stay in the field, and I couldn't find exact data because I like data, but it seemed to be like if you're not in a progression up towards your BCBA, it seemed to be a very short time. All right, and next we also have Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie. Tell everyone about yourself. How long you been in the field?
Hi, Kelly. Hi, Jen. Hi, Sal. I've been in the field since 2018, so about 6 years now. I worked with young ones from 2 years old and all the way up to about 33. Um, Different kinds of behaviors, whether it be aggressiveness, self-interest behaviors, just them needing, help with speaking and stuff like that. It's had its rough days, it's had its good days, but I love it. I fell in love with the field and I continue to stay in the field. So yes.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
Grab your microphone up here. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so let's talk burnout, right? So whenever I do these podcasts, I do it from things I see on social media. And while I was seeing on Reddit how miserable and stressed so many in the responses for these RBTs, I was seeing other companies saying self-wellness for RBTs. And I thought this isn't matching. Okay, so we're going to take this topic. I want both of you to talk about each of you, and in a couple minutes, how have you stayed in this field for so long? And I'm going to just, if I may, currently neither of you are in a path towards your BCBA, correct?
That's
Not
right.
yet.
Right. So you're a behavior therapist, RBTs.
Yep.
How on earth have you stayed in this field for so long? Like what motivation did you pull from to continue this work? It's not easy. And I know you both are working with some of the severe of the severe.
I need to live. Other than that, I mean, my heart is in it. My heart is in it. It's not just the paycheck. And trust me, there are days where I want to just go home and cry and not want to go back. But this is what I want to do. I want to help these individuals. It's not always easy. Just like any other job, we have responsibilities, even though sometimes we don't agree the way things are going, the flow, but you just have to be patient and just, roll with it. But it's not easy. Can I say it again? It's not easy.
And I would completely agree with you. It really is not easy to be a BI. And it's just, the field is very transient. It just keeps going and going, and nobody thinks of it as a place to stay in a way. And I've been a BI for like so long. And for me, it's where I could kind of do the most good. I'm going to school, still, and BCBA probably is going to be the path I'm going. I feel like I'm good at, because where I get to go, it's like making programs and stuff. But I would do it personally because of the whole just helping people. Every job I've been at, it was like I was a caregiver, I was in hospice. I've always wanted to help people. Once I found the ABA field, it's like, oh, I'm helping people talk, walk. I'm helping families, be able to like live a regular day regular for them, where they don't get hit by somebody. And it's just like, mom, I want this, and them just crying because they've never had that. So it's a beautiful field to be in because of that.
We've done a podcast on this before, Jen and I, and it's a lot about like when Jen was talking about the kind of people that worked well with her son. And it's interesting, you both said it's your heart. And so I think that companies need to start screening for people who like this is their heart. But I don't know how I would interview for that. Do you guys have any suggestions? Like how would we interview to know if this is someone's path or heart?
That's a tough one because honestly, people can put up a front. They really can. So they can be like, oh yeah, it's what I want to do. It's in my drive. I want to help people. They're there for 2 weeks and they're like, fuck this, I'm done. So I don't know. That'd be a tough interview question.
Right?
And I tell you honestly, I've heard from an owner of a company that they were like, because I was talking to them, I was like, how do people stay? They don't pay them enough. It's not that. And then he literally told me, it's kind of a good thing though, because if they're not getting paid enough, and if they're not like, if it's a hard job, then the people that don't care will leave. And I'm like, okay, but the people that also care might not be able to survive enough to stay. So that was his reasoning. I think my way of like thinking about it to keep people would be just to screen is just have them be trained. If they do well with the training, have them do a practice session and see what the job is. If this is
Mhm.
what they want, you'll see it. Because where I work personally, it's they didn't used to see what the field is like, and I work in severe at the moment. So they would leave after a week or two. But
Yeah.
if you're in a regular session and you would see like, okay, well, this is okay, we're playing. Are we just playing? It's like, no, playing is teaching. We're doing NET, natural environment teaching, just make it natural, but make it good. If they can't do that, sorry, you're not for the field.
Interesting perspective. So, all of the prevent burnout, they say work-life balance, find a special
Mhm.
interest, um, find a hobby, all those things, like get in touch with friends and all that. And that's all well and good, it's all well and good, but let's get real. And let's talk a little bit. And it's like meditate and practice mindfulness and all that. Okay, fine. But let's talk about the real stuff. And this is not about anyone particular, just in your long experience in the field, you've always been supervised by BCBAs. What can BCBAs do specifically to help RBTs and behavior therapists with any potential burnout issues from your perspectives?
I would say, at least from my perspective, there's a lot of BCBA could do, but there's also kind of walls that are up for the BCBA. And I think that's where I would like to start. A
Mm.
lot of the issues when it comes to the field is not the BCBA, it's the admin right on top of the BCBA,
Mm.
stressing
Mhm.
them out, causing them to have burnout, which then leads to more pressure on the BCBA, more pressure on the PM, more pressure on the BI.
Mhm.
And I see it all the time. And the transient thing was said by Caitlin, somebody that works at the company. I just had to remember that. But the thing a BCBA could do, at least for me specifically, it would be acknowledging the stress, acknowledging how hard it is, sometimes. And also we have a problem not a problem, but we have a thing in the field where I keep saying touch nose because it's so ingrained, but you will be doing touch nose for 3 months every single day. And it's going to take a while. So there's this like long-term way of programming, and you almost need filler programming, I would say.
Interesting.
But
I said interesting.
no, yeah, and if you don't get checked in on, a lot of the time you're one-to-one, and
Mhm.
you're just there by yourself, and you're doing
Mhm.
the same thing every day, and it feels a little like madness sometimes. So I would say for a BCBA, just acknowledgement. It would be recognition, and bring the BI into the conversation. I'm helping writing programs, like where I'm at, I'm helping
Mhm.
running FAs, like functional assessments, and it's a beautiful thing, and it drives you, and it makes you want to be a BI.
Mhm.
Great.
In the past, when I used to be in the general ABA
Mhm.
area of the company, that's where a lot of the burnout happened. Yes, way more less problematic behavior compared to where I'm at now. But I feel like I never got to see my BCBAs. They would just send an
Yep.
email.
Mhm.
They wouldn't be there and run BST with me, like, hey, show me how to do this, show me this program. There's only
Mhm.
so much you can do via email, via Fuse or Teams or whatnot, but where I'm at now, luckily, in this little area that we're in, I see a lot more of our BCBAs, our CSs. They're there for us more. We get to have, with one of my CSs, we have our little vent therapy sessions. Well, I'll just rant. Okay, I'm done. And he goes, all right, you feel better? I go, yeah. And then he'll give me feedback that way, and also because in this part of the field that I'm in with the severe behaviors, we get to do a 2-to-1. So
Mm.
luckily we have each other's back. Us two BTs take turn. Your turn,
Mhm.
tap in. So that kind of helps out too with some of the stress that comes with every daily session.
I
No, that
just
makes
had
sense. So from one thing that you were saying, Salvador, that for my company, that we do a thing, we call it the 3 R's. And one is, and I think they mainly think of it for our lead volunteers, but because we're really reliant on volunteers, but recruitment, we always need to be getting more, right? So our volunteers, our staff aren't getting burned out. You have to have enough people. Retention, making sure they're happy so they want to stay. And you said recognition. And I think that's like from what I see and, as being a parent with I can't even, Kelly, who knows how many BIs Dylan's had in the 24 years. But it's so important. And one thing that I always find weird as a parent is like, I've been very lucky with the BIs Dylan's had. And, of course I want to recognize and, pay respect. A lot of the companies, they literally tell the BIs that they don't want them to talk to me.
Yep.
Like besides, just doing the drills, right? Like, don't talk about anything, don't have a relationship with the family and all that. And I just think it's so crazy, especially if someone's in your house or they're, I also get behavior respite. So they are BIs, but they're watching him while I'm going out and doing things. And there's times Dylan wants to call me, right? And of course, like, it just makes sense. But I just think it's so important from what I'm hearing you guys say, because unless you have communication and open dialogue with your BIs, like, and you want, as a family member, you want to show, I would say, I can't speak for everybody, but most people that I know with a child with autism, we're so grateful to, especially, I have to say the BIs for sure. No offense, Kelly, on the higher ups,
Sure.
But when it comes down to it, those are the ones that, as a parent, you're really relying on to like keep your sanity in the house,
a lot of that comes about from our ethics codes and inexperience. So the ethics codes for RBTs actually say like that programming goes through the BCBA, right? Because the BCBA is supervising the team members to on the programs, and that communication should come from the trained person in programming, and the RBT is the person implementing the program, right? But come on, there's a lot we can do with all that, right? And so like a BCBA who is savvy enough can work with their behavior therapists on like how to communicate with families and what things to say. Because there's no question, I've worked with in some situations where behavior therapists have communicated things ineffectively, right? Like I recall a situation where not anywhere I am currently, where a behavior therapist told a parent that their child eloped. And that parent thought that the child, it was a center base, thought the child left the center. And the child hadn't left the center. They said that he eloped a lot. And the child had just been leaving the activity within the room, right? And so, and that parent got really upset and said, my child's never eloped before. How can this happen? And that wasn't elopement. It was leaving the activity. And so that's a training issue, right? Like if I can train my behavior therapist on the proper way to talk about it, talk to the families. But let's talk about the parents for a second. And Jen, this is going to be hard for you because you're good. But there's no question, having been in this field this long, all of us, is the other side of this stress is the family's perspective. And some of the things we as interventionists have to face with families, right? I've shown up at homes and I had a dad greet me with his underwear on all the time. Like there was no question. I was young and he was making it clear he was interested in me. And right. And I've had, I've been propositioned by a bunch of dads and a mom.
Same.
Yeah, same, right? And both dads and moms.
Yeah.
And, right. And like we've all had stuff. The thing that I see the most that comes up is one, and I'll do a side note, like I have a stepdaughter with special needs. It's super friggin' stressful, right? It's stressful and you never know what's happening. And it's the highest stress parenting you can do. So we get that perspective. But on the RBT side, your behavior interventionist, I want you guys to talk about what are some things that parents can do to make this less stressful for you. And the number one thing that comes up in all the social media I see is cancellations and not getting the hours.
The cancellations.
I've never canceled this.
You never cancel. That's why I said this is hard for you.
I feel like they never cancel us either, huh, Sal?
Oh,
They
yeah.
always need us.
I have some cases that do. And
Oh,
you know what? Let me start talking about the parents then.
Yep.
Jen, turn off your
All
camera.
right.
Get out. I'm just kidding. No, all right. So let's talk about it. Let's be real. The
Yep.
truth is, all of it comes from a good place, of course, just like Kelly said.
Yep.
But here's the truth behind it. We're coming into someone's home and we're trying to teach someone something that doesn't want to learn something, usually.
Mhm.
So
It's
there's
hard.
that. It's hard. It's hard. But yeah, parents cancel. Parents don't respect what we do. I've had parents be like, well, I don't really need to talk to you. Kind of the opposite of what we were talking about earlier. I don't need to talk to you. I need to talk to your BCBA. It's like, okay, that's fine. And then it's like, it gets worse because then it gets to, well, your BCBA said you shouldn't be doing that. I'm like, I just talked to them. There are upgrades to this or updates. So then there's that miscommunication sometimes.
Mhm.
And also, I hate to say it, sometimes parents, I've had parents, just like Kelly said, actually, I've had parents smack my tuchus, just smack me right on the ass for the record. And that was one of my favorite parents, but I was like, okay, we need to have these boundaries. So it really is true. Boundaries are important in some sense. But also it's, I don't know, we're talking about for burnout, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Like what makes it where you wouldn't want to do this job anymore?
You know what? If a parent appreciates you, if a parent offers you water, which is the simplest thing, I think it's just that basic human kindness.
Yep.
Mhm.
And instead of like, because I've had parents just be like, oh, hi, you're here. Okay, great.
Yep. See ya.
And they just leave. And I've had parents want to leave the house, and I'm like, no, you cannot do that. It's horrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nothing. Go ahead.
Your finger was in there, so I was like,
Sorry,
yeah.
sorry.
Stephanie's about to get in.
Yep.
She's like, I'm done though. I'm done.
Oh, yes, I agree with you, Sal. The last part, I don't like being treated as a babysitter. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not 14.
Part.
I'm not gonna make your kid popcorn and then let them do whatever the hell they want. A lot of that happened mostly when I was with the younger ones, in my first, beginning years here in the field, and I just hated it. You know what I mean? It's like, no, I'm here to help you manage your child. I'm here to help you so you guys can get this and get us out of your house. Right? I mean, that's the main goal. You know what I mean? And no, just being treated as a babysitter, that made it rough. And I was like, nah, that's not for me. No. But as of now, I have parents who are very black and white with me, very open. Stephanie, A, B, and C, what can we do? I'll be like, hey, cool, let me talk to my CS, let me talk to program manager, and we'll figure it out. But I'm not your child babysitter.
I want that on a bumper sticker, honestly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I hear that a lot. Jen, let's hear, like, I'm biased. I know you've always done this well, but you've worked with other families that
Yeah.
haven't, and
Mhm.
have a perspective that you can share from the parent side.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I always looked at it like, definitely in the beginning because I was, pretty shocked. Like, even though I knew he had autism for probably like a year and a half before he actually got diagnosed, and I had to fight for, the diagnosis, it's still like it's devastating. And like, he was young, I was young. I had a baby at the same time, trying to figure out what to do. And like for me, I've always looked at it as, I needed help, and like I welcomed the help, and I really wanted to do as much as I could and learn as much as I could, because I knew like there's 24 hours in a day. You only get so many hours no matter what the service is. Unless I like learn and dig deep and like execute it myself, like when you guys leave, like it's just not going to happen. And one thing you just said, Stephanie, which is always the goal and actually has happened with us in a positive way. Obviously it took, over a decade, but the goal is like to get you guys out of the house, right? Like to
100%.
get him to the point where he can self-regulate, he can he literally does now like his own Like he'll either tell me like when he's gonna trip out, which he doesn't trip out anymore, but he self-regulates, or he'll be like, set a timer. And I'm like, how many minutes? And like 6 minutes. And then he'll look at the timer, or he'll like, or we'll be in the car and he's like starting to stress out and trip. And I can hear him, he's like, doing, are you doing deep breaths? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, are you worried about something? And yes. And like, he's very scripted, but he can get out what's bothering him and
I'm
stuff.
so proud of him.
Yeah. But I mean, this is a kid that, he used to
Take us
kicking
out.
windshields and like, destruction of property, self-injury, like all this stuff. And but yeah, I mean, I always just kudos again to BIs, especially either whether Dylan has always had a personal BI with him when he was in school, like his whole career. He's in Easter Seals now with a job coach. I get behavior respite, but we don't do ABA anymore. We don't do any services anymore besides that. And really the respite is for me, so I don't lose my mind, so I can still work or spend time with my other son, Ethan. But yeah, I think it's so important. The one thing that I always find, which I wonder for burnout for you guys, because you guys are invested in your clients, right? The only struggle I have sometimes is his job coach right now and his respite BIs are like super amazing and wonderful. But of course, like you guys have to have a break sometime, right? There's days that you have to take off, or you want to go on a mini vacation or whatever. And there's no backup staff at all. And a lot of times I'm not told until like literally the night of. And that messes me up for even work too, right? And I was just wondering like your perspective on that. Like, because you're so invested, do you feel like this personal also pressure of like, if I am not with this person, I'm working, like you said, day to day to work on all this stuff. Like, and even if they do get backup, are you worried that like that person might not know enough like to like follow through on what you're trying to achieve?
Good question.
I'm not gonna lie, I do feel guilty when I need a personal day. I feel guilty when I want to take a week off just to have a staycation, because it's in the back of my mind. Oh, how is, Johnny doing? How is Rebecca doing? Like, are they, using their, their breathing exercises I taught them and stuff like that. So, I mean, like I said, it's in my heart. I want to make sure they're okay, but it is important for us to take those days too, so we can give our all, continue giving our all to our participants, because if we're burnt out and tired, then they can feel it, and then all hell can break loose.
Yeah.
So, but I do feel guilty, Jen. I do.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah, just especially feeling guilty is just kind of a part of it, and it's instilled in us. I'm going to tell you the truth. I've had PCBAs, I've had PMs, I've had from all levels just be like, when you're not here, we don't have anybody and we have to cancel on them. And it's like, okay, sounds like you should have people, and there's no backup. And I'm going to say this again, and I'm going to keep, there's a little paper I have here, I write things on. Scheduling. It is the main problem in all of ABA is the scheduler. That's why the parents finding out late. That's why the BI is not able to take a vacation. People leave because of the schedule. Let me say that right now.
Yep.
But with what you were saying of, do we feel bad? Absolutely. And then it's like, if we're not there a day, and then it goes into the weekend, by the time Monday comes along, we have to do even more work to get them to where they were. And that's the thing. It's like there's regression, there's other parts of it. Parents are mad at you, by the way, when you're gone.
Yep.
Also, and even if you get somebody to cover, here's the truth. You know the case. The person that covers, if you don't have a good PM or a good BCBA, I'm gonna tell you what, that program does not have any structure. You don't actually know how it's written. Have you ever seen a program, Stephanie, where it's just like, oh yeah, this is a manning program, so make sure they man. And there's not a lot of detail.
Totally.
Yeah, correct response, incorrect response. There's no proper outline. So then the person that's on is like, well, I don't really know how to run this. The parent sees this as like, this company's unprofessional. Everybody looks bad. Everybody feels bad. And then it also causes a clinging from the parent, which is interesting because it's almost like the parent's like, well, my BI knows what they're talking about. If you try to get me any other BI, I'm going to be very angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm going to say that's a bad thing. It technically is a bad thing because it's, you should be able to generalize the parent, obviously, but also in a way, the company. Why isn't everybody that's on this case having that ability to run a basic program? Like, I'm sure you don't, Jen, you don't want to be a practice case, right? You don't want somebody to throw their BI with you and just be like, this is their first day. They've never been with anybody. Here's Dylan, you know, like just there. It's just one of those things.
I think so. And wrapping this up, there's been some beautiful salient things for people to think about. I don't know that we're solving things, but the honesty from the two of you is fantastic. And so what I'm hearing is from your BCBAs, you know, show up for your behavior therapist, program for your behavior therapist, cross-train for your behavior therapist, tell the families in advance, people are going to take time off, and then you can have this option or that option, scheduling it properly. And for the families, do not treat your therapist as babysitters. Show some decent kindness and respect for them. Have I got it?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Woo.
Wow, this was great, you guys. Thank you so much for joining our podcast and enlightening the field from your behavioral, two longtime people in the field on what we could all do to be better rather than just like work-life balance. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a great day, everyone.
Love.